Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is my friend. Jesus is a friend of mine. He taught me how to live my life as it should be. He taught me how to turn my cheek when people laugh at me. I've had friends before, and I can tell you that.
Yeah, baby. You know it, man. We thought joy. For the spirit of heaviness, we thought we'd sing a song together. Jesus is a friend of mine. You can't beat that. What an incredible day. Thank you. My brother-in-law sent me that. So we are rocking it here tonight. We're having a great time. What a day. I feel like I'm out on Huber. We were released for a few hours and we're back in. And that is it. Wow. What? Talk about make your head spin. So a couple more weeks, people. Couple more weeks. I've said this a few times. Just try not to set dates because they'll get depressed. So Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is a friend. Taught me how to turn the other cheek. We are having a great time here tonight.
We as in he is
I am having a good night. Grab a Bible. Here, I'll put that in front too. We are going through Luke. We're having, we're going through the book of Luke. Read with us. Bible Blitz going through Acts by the end of the month. And we're getting close to the halfway point here. So Luke 21, you have questions. I will use my phone for questions this time.
I know the number if you don't.
715-834-4078. 4078. Any questions or put them right here. And we will get started after that incredible introduction.
Wow, it's almost hard, but we will try. So Luke chapter 21, verse 1 through 3. I'll just read those quickly. While Jesus was in the temple, he watched the rich people dropping their gifts in the collection box. Then a poor widow came by and dropped in 2 small coins. I tell you the truth, Jesus said, this poor widow has given more than all the rest of them. For they have given a tiny part of their surplus, but she has given everything she has. So during these festivals, the people were to bring something for the temple. In Deuteronomy 16:16, God said, don't appear before me empty-handed. So they knew they had to bring something, but people offered a percentage of their wealth. The difference is this widow gave everything she had. And I really don't think that many of us on a Sunday or any given time give everything we have. But that's the incredible part. Everything she absolutely had. And probably wasn't a lot, but it was everything she had. And then the next thing we're going to talk about is the prophecy of doom, divided into 2 parts, talking about the destruction of the temple. And this prompts 2 questions. When is this going to happen? When is the temple going to be destroyed? And that's in chapter 21, verse 8 through 24. And then the second question, what is the sign of your return? Chapter 21, 25 through 36. Sorry.
So a lot of these things, one thing we know about the prophecies, even in the Old Testament, they happen, and I teach this a lot on Sunday mornings, the circularness of the Hebrew in the Bible. It happened and will happen again because it represents something. And so what he's talking about here happened already and will happen again because he's talking about the fall of Jerusalem.
Right. And
many messiahs come forth, and there is going to be a guy probably about 90 years in the future from this, Bar Kokhba, and he's going to lead a rebellion, call himself the Messiah, and all the Jews are going to come with him. Rome is going to come down hard and wipe out Israel. I mean, the Jews don't live there anymore, and they're going to change the name of the place to Palestine. Now, doesn't that have consequences today, even today? So he's talking about false messiahs. They did rise up, but there's going to be another one.
The Antichrist. And Antichrist actually means instead of Christ. And that can be anyone or anything, too, that we hold higher than Jesus. And in Matthew, in Matthew 24:5, it talks about many messiahs, and that word is actually spelled E-G-O in Greek. So ego, many messiahs, I am Messiah. I thought it was interesting, even, I am. So that falseness of that. And then the physical signs that are going to happen, earthquakes, plagues, famines, just terrifying things are going to happen.
We're going to jump back a little bit. A question came through, Jenny, about giving everything. And here's the question. Is that just mean money, or could it be everything of our lives? Opinion question.
Well, I think in this section it's talking about money, but I think it should be everything.
Yeah.
Or everything that we can.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Good question.
Very good, yes.
Appreciate that. Okay, so the persecution, what's going to happen? False messiahs, and then he goes right to the disciples. You guys are going to be persecuted. What a great conversation. They're going to drag you into synagogues and prisons and stand trial. And look at this. He says this, verse 18. Not a hair of your head will perish. Are you kidding? 11 of the, well, Judas is going to kill himself. 10 of the 11 are going to die. So yeah, the hairs in their head are going to, more than just the hairs in their head are going to perish. You know, they're going to be beheaded and shot and hung upside down and everything. So how can he say not a hair of your head would be perished? He said it a couple times in the Gospels that God knows the hairs of your head. And so what he's sitting there saying, who you are is not going to perish. God's going to know what you're going through. These are not random things that you sit there and say, where is God? He's right there. No matter what type of persecution you're going through, do not think God has forsaken you and he doesn't know what's happening. And then verse 20, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, you'll know the time of destruction has arrived. Flee to the hills. Jerusalem was destroyed in the year 70. This is interesting. In the year 67 at Passover, they were sacrificing the lamb, and they had this vision. It's written down in history of, in the sky, chariots racing around the temple. Incredible. And the people saw a vision in the sky, just a bizarre thing. Well, it's amazing how they interpreted. The Jews, the zealots who really took over Jerusalem, interpreted it as kind of like Elisha. The armies of God are with us. We're unbeatable. And the next year they go to war against Rome to fight them. The Christians, the believers, said when you see the army surround, they saw it and they left Jerusalem. They literally left. And so just obeying what God said, just an interesting little tidbit there. But the Bible says Jerusalem's going to be taken over, and it literally says in verse 24, and it will be trampled down by the Gentiles until the period of the Gentiles comes to an end. Since 70 AD until 2020, the Gentiles have had a foot in Jerusalem, but there will be a day when the time of the Gentiles is over, and Jesus will reign in there again.
Yes, yeah. And then verses 25 to 28, it says, talks about Jesus returning in the clouds, and verse 28, so when all these things begin to happen, stand and look up, for your salvation is near. That's just awesome. I just have to say this. When I was a little girl, I just remember looking up at the clouds all the time, wondering if Jesus was going to come back. And that's when I was being good. And then when I was bad, it's like, I hope he doesn't come back. But even as adults, you know, we should be looking up.
Let me jump on what you said a couple nights ago when we talked about the rapture. And where what you said is if you went home and got hit, you're raptured.
Right. Yeah. If you go out, I just said people ask about the rapture. When's the rapture going to happen? You know, is it going to pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib, whatever? When's it going to happen? And we always like to say, well, if I go to the grocery store tonight, get hit by a car, my rapture already happened if I die. That's our rapture.
So let's add that to this part. When things begin to happen, it may not be the end of the world. Is Corona the end of the world? I don't know. But when you're going through something, stand up and look up, because guess what's coming?
Yes.
Your salvation too.
Amen.
You know, whether it's everybody all at once or you individually, salvation's coming. And when this trial is over, when the hairs on your head perish, we will live with God forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Wow.
Incredible.
What a hope for us.
Incredible. Yes, and then verse 34, it talks about not letting your heart be dulled. And the story of the parable of the 10 virgins in Matthew, where basically they all fell asleep. You know, they were to keep their lamps burning, but all of them did fall asleep. But, you know, God can awaken us. I mean, we can all, I think, become dull and just apathetic. And hopefully that's something that's happened through this time, that we are, paying attention, I guess, and realizing how quickly life can change. And
Yeah, so keep alert. Even when we fall asleep, God, wake me up.
Amen.
Because I want to be strong. It said, escape these coming horrors and stand before the Son of Man. God, that I be strong in the middle of it. Verse 19, let me just jump back. By standing firm, you're going to win your souls. God, help us to be strong.
Yes.
You know, that's our only hope
Yes.
in the middle of this.
Yes. And then verse 22 is chapter 22, verse 1 through 6, the Passover plot, where Satan enters Judas. And it literally says he enters him. And who knows when that happened? Could it have been after Judas complained? Mary, when she anointed him, and the costly perfume, that greed, and was that the time that it entered his heart, that Satan entered? We don't know, but it could be.
And going back to what you said before, another Messiah took over for him.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
money.
Yeah, greed, money, love him. Yeah.
It's amazing how there's themes through this, isn't it? And so Jesus sent his disciples in and said, let's find a place to do Passover. Why have to find a place? Boy, wouldn't the Pharisees love to catch him alone with his disciples? You know, grab him. And he wants to have this meal. Let's not get caught yet.
Right.
He knows he's going to get caught tonight, but not yet. And he said, find a guy carrying a bucket of water on his head. And actually, we know from history, the house they went to was Mark's. Mark, who wrote one of the Gospels. This Mark. And it's going to be the same upper room where the Holy Spirit falls. This room kind of becomes famous, you know, with them there. And we may have went to it.
Yes.
So, you know, kind of an interesting thing when we were in Jerusalem. And so they went there, and Jesus literally has a Passover meal with them and has what we call communion, where he gave the wine and the cup, and he said, I'm not going to drink of it again till it's fulfilled in the kingdom. But he never said, don't you guys drink it either.
Right.
So we celebrate communion from that. And so he's sharing what's happening in his heart and a new covenant, and the guys are really getting it, aren't they?
Yeah, they really get it. Yes, in verse 24 to 30, basically what are they saying? Who's going to be the greatest one? I mean, that really saddens me. Actually, tonight I said to Kim, I said, doesn't that, I bet Jesus was grieved with that. You know, who's going to be the greatest? All about me, all about me. But what does he say? You know, be a servant now. In heaven you'll be exalted. And who's the most important is the one who serves. And when we think of Jesus, that's what he said. He was a servant. I was just talking to somebody today about just people, and I'm not going to name names, but we were talking about people that have such a servant's heart to serve people, just to give behind the scenes, never seen, but it's such a beautiful thing. But obviously the disciples here didn't get that concept right then.
No.
Who's going to be the greatest, you know, who's going to be up there. And then verse 31 to 34, when Jesus predicted Peter's denial, Peter, you know, no, I'll never deny you. I will be with you. I'll do whatever. I will never deny you. And Jesus said, you know, before the cock crows 3 times you will deny me. And for years I always thought the rooster crowing.
Yeah, rooster.
You know,
in fact, the Bible interprets it rooster.
Yes, it does say rooster, but actually that's not what that was. The cock was the shofar, and the priest blowing that for the call to prayer.
The start of the day.
The start of the day, yes.
The day starts. And he says, so before the call of prayer, the cock blows his shofar, you'll deny me. So no rooster.
No rooster.
That's depressing. Okay. And so he predicts that. And then this interesting thing. When I sent you to preach, verse 35, I didn't ask you to take any money, traveler's bag, or anything. No. He said, now take money, traveler's bag, and a sword, sell your cloak, and get one. For the time has come for this prophecy to be fulfilled. Buying swords, what exactly is he asking them to do? Fight? Because, I mean, Peter's going to pull out one of those swords and chop an ear, and Jesus is saying, stop it, you know, don't do it. He's saying that last time you went out, there was total protection. The next few days are going to be tough. You're going to be running for your life. You know, a sword's coming at you. And they looked at it as rebellion. Hey, we have 2 swords. And he said, that's enough. It's not like 2 swords are enough. It's more like, that's enough. Okay, this isn't a rebellion. I'm not talking about that. It's going to be a hard time. Okay, so he's not saying 2 swords are enough for him. And then they go to the Mount of Olives to pray. We went there, Gethsemane. The thing that really struck at me, it's extremely small.
Yes.
It's like a backyard. And I know backyards are all different sizes. It's a very small area that they went and prayed. And it's just in the valley, Jerusalem here, Mount of Olives there. 2 olive trees.
Over 2,000 years old, really big, huge.
So
that actually gives you goosebumps thinking over 2,000 years, those trees were there. I mean, we're not saying he was right at the tree, but could be.
Yeah. So one of those 2 trees were there. And so he went off to pray, and Gethsemane means olive press. This is amazing. And the only reason I want to share this, guys, is God has got so much control, and everything is, he's putting something together.
Yeah.
Gethsemane is called the olive press. And when we went to Nazareth, they shared how they press olives. And they have, I hope you can get this, this is a huge log. This, I know it's a solid arm with muscles bulging. It's hard to say. And what they would do is, it was on a hinge, okay, on a hinge. They would put the basket of olives here.
My head's in there.
That's the basket of
Shining the
olives.
olive.
Crush it. Crush the olives. We
Oh
crush
my
them.
goodness.
Okay, so it presses down.
I'll go over it.
Okay, it presses down. That's called pure virgin olive oil, the purest there is. And then they bring it up. They tie a stone on it to give it weight, and it presses harder. Okay, so the second time it's harder and squeezes it. They bring it up a second time, put weight on it, and the third time it comes down and breaks the basket, crushes every bit of juice that's left. What happened to Jesus? He prayed once. You know, he was praying, Father, do this. In fact, we really assume that the prayer of John 17 was during that first time. God, make them one, even as you and I are one. It went back the second time. His disciples were sleeping. He went back the second time and said, God, if there's a way to take this cup from me, remove it. Went back the third time with the real crushing. Blood started pouring from his head. So even the way they have harvested olives for thousands of years meant something when Jesus went to the olive press called Gethsemane and started praying there, and just the breaking, you know, that's happening in his life. And God just sent angels to strengthen him, because he's going to begin an incredible thing for salvation. And then we found out something about them sleeping too. The disciples sleeping.
Yeah, it said in their grief. I didn't realize that. How, and I thought, wow, that really makes sense, you know, because you think, oh, they fell asleep, they were just exhausted, tired. But it said they're grieving. It was about their grieving. So, you know, when you grieve, you are tired. You're emotionally, spiritually, physically spent when you're grieving. So obviously we discussed that, you know, Jesus was heavy. There had to be such an oppressive heaviness, and maybe that kind of a foreboding of grieving, knowing something was coming but not fully understanding it.
So it's not just, boy, what a day this has been.
No, there was a grieving.
So there's a spiritual heaviness happening on all of them at this time. Okay? Rough place to stop, but I think we can be encouraged that God is in control. So when different gods rise up and come against you, and it seems like the world's spinning out of control, I told you these things would happen. So you'd have peace. When you're dragged away, you're going to have peace. And there's going to be a meal someday, so stand strong. I'm going to eat it with you, and everything is under control. Wow, what a story. What a story. Let's just pray that over people. Father, thank you for the hope that's in you. God, I know there are people being crushed under weights of rocks. Maybe they're just angry that we were set free, and now we're in Eau Claire, at least we're bound down again. There's anger, there's frustration, but God, we look to you, because we're going to eat with you forever and ever. Keep us sharp. May we not fall asleep. And if we have fallen asleep, shake us up, God.
Yes, Lord.
Shake us up, we ask, that we'd be strong. In your awesome name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So what do we got going on, Jenny?
Oh, tomorrow at 11 o'clock, set your alarms from 11 to 11:05. If you would just pray in the Spirit. People all around the world are doing this for that 5-minute window. Pray in the Spirit, or however God would have you to pray for President Trump, for our nation, just for wisdom, that the voices around him would just be good voices, be loud, and not good voices be silenced, basically. He'd be surrounded by wise counselors. So, and I know he's going to play that song to end it. I just knew it. Okay.
Good night.
Good night.